"Mom, someone's here to see you," said 15-year-old Emily, her voice tinged with urgency. Lisa was sitting at her desk, surrounded by work papers and listening to music through her headphones to block out the noisy renovation next door. She didn't hear her daughter and stayed focused on her work. "Mom," Emily shouted louder, shaking her mother's shoulder with a sense of urgency. Startled, Lisa turned around, her eyes widening. "Why are you yelling, Emily?" she asked, feeling a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. "Granny's here again and she's asking for you." Lisa's mood soured instantly. She closed her eyes, counted to 10, sighed deeply, and braced herself for the inevitable confrontation. "Where is she?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's in the kitchen, as usual, looking annoyed," Emily replied, worry etched on her face. Lisa got up, removed her headphones, paused her music, and reluctantly went to the kitchen. There sat Helen, her husband William's mother, who worked as a security guard and wouldn't be home until 10 p.m. "I've been sitting here waiting for you," Helen began without a greeting, her eyes gleaming with disdain. "As long as it takes," Lisa retorted, her voice tense. "What do you want this time?" "Control your temper, young lady. I deserve respect," Helen said sternly, her tone icy. "Age and respect don't automatically go together. What do you want, and why are you here again? Will isn't home, and you know that. He wouldn't be happy to see you after what you said last time," Lisa replied, feeling a flicker of anger rising. "I'm not here to argue, Lisa. I just want to talk," Helen said, slightly softening her tone, yet the tension between them remained palpable. "We have nothing to talk about. Please leave and don't come back," Lisa said, her voice steely. "No, sit and listen. I'll say what I came to say whether you like it or not," the older woman insisted, growing more forceful. "Do you understand me?" "Fine, but only if you promise to leave immediately afterward," Lisa replied, trying to stay calm. Helen smirked, a hint of malevolence in her eyes. "You're not in a position to make demands." Lisa struggled to keep her composure. "Sit down and, better yet, make us some tea," Helen ordered with an air of authority. "Would you like some bread with butter too?" Lisa asked sarcastically, the tension in the room mounting. "If needed, yes. Now stop arguing," Helen demanded. "Just tell me what you want and go." Helen leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, a look of defiance on her face. The air in the kitchen was thick with tension, and Lisa could feel her patience wearing thin. "All right then," Helen began, her voice carrying a tone of authority. "Next week is Alex's birthday, and I want to give him and his family a trip to Thailand. I need your help with the money." Lisa saw through the request immediately. "I can't help with that," she said firmly. "You haven't even heard me out," Helen began, raising her voice and bringing her fist down on the table. "I don't need to. You want us to help fund a vacation for your favorite son. Will won't give you a single cent, and neither will I. The nerve of you coming here and asking for money after what you said last time." Lisa's anger was building. Helen's eyes narrowed and she leaned forward, her voice dropping to a low hiss. "If you refuse, I'll make sure no one in the family talks to you anymore." "I don't care," Lisa said. "Now leave before I throw you out myself." Emily was just outside the kitchen, straining to hear the conversation. She had always found her grandmother's visits stressful, and this one was no exception. The shouting had drawn her in, and she couldn't help but listen. Helen's face flushed with anger. "You think you can just dismiss me? I am your elder, and you will show me respect." "Respect is earned, not demanded," Lisa shot back. "You've done nothing but cause trouble for us." Emily's heart pounded as she watched the confrontation. She knew her mother was reaching the end of her patience, and she wondered how far things would go. "Fine, you want to play it that way." Helen spat. "Then consider yourselves cut off. No more family gatherings, no more invitations, nothing. You're on your own." Lisa took a deep breath, steadying herself. Good. Maybe then we'll have some peace. Emily burst into the room at the sound of shouting. What's going on? I'm trying to do my homework, she asked, her voice trembling as she looked at both women. Get out of here, you brat, Helen yelled at her granddaughter, her voice harsh and unyielding. This doesn't concern you. Without a word, Emily walked over to the kitchen table, picked up a pitcher of cold water, poured a glass, and threw the water directly into her grandmother's face. Cool down, Granny, she said calmly, or I'll use a whole bucket next time. Lisa couldn't contain her laughter. She had dreamed of doing the same thing countless times, but never had the nerve. Emily simply turned and went back to her room to continue her homework. Helen, furious and dripping wet, shoved Lisa aside and stormed out of the apartment, cursing all the way down the hall. What took you so long to do that? Emily asked her mother. Every time she comes here, it's the same drama. There's no other grandmother, and she isn't much of one either, Emily muttered as she returned to her studies. Later, when Will came home, he was visibly upset. What did you do today? He demanded, not even waiting to take off his coat. What do you mean? Lisa asked innocently, still smiling at the memory of her mother-in-law's drenched face. You know very well what I mean. Why did you and Emily throw water on my mother? She was asking for it, Lisa said bluntly. She came here demanding money for a trip to Thailand for Alex. She even tried to blackmail me, saying if we didn't give her the money, we wouldn't be invited to his birthday party, and the family would cut us off. Will sighed, rubbing his temples. She asked me for $500 today for that trip. I told her no. She's furious. Lisa sat down beside him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. We've dealt with her nonsense for years, Will. It's time we stood up for ourselves. Will nodded slowly, the weight of the day's events settling on him. I just wish it didn't have to come to this. Emily appeared in the doorway, her expression determined. We did what we had to do, Dad. It's about time we put an end to her control over us. Will looked at his daughter, a mix of pride and sadness in his eyes. You're right, Emily. It's just hard to accept. The family sat together in the kitchen, the tension easing as they shared their thoughts and feelings. They knew that this confrontation was a turning point, a moment that would change the dynamics of their relationships forever. As the evening wore on, they talked about their hopes and fears, finding comfort in each other's company. The storm that Helen had brought into their lives was finally beginning to clear, and they could see a path forward that was free from her manipulative influence. Will sat down heavily at the kitchen table, finally understanding the whole story. Good riddance, he muttered. We've had enough of her nonsense. From that day on, Will and his family were no longer bothered by his relatives. They were finally free to live their lives in peace, much to their collective relief. The sense of liberation was palpable. No longer would they be subjected to the whims and demands of Helen. The family found joy in their newfound freedom, exploring interests and activities that had long been overshadowed by the drama Helen brought with her. Emily excelled in her studies, finding a newfound focus and determination. Lisa and Will rediscovered their love for each other, spending more quality time together and strengthening their bond. The house, once filled with tension, now echoed with laughter and warmth. As time passed, they occasionally heard gossip about Helen and her latest escapades, but it no longer affected them. They were a united front, resilient and happy in their decision to cut ties with the toxic influence that had plagued them for so long. In the end, the confrontation with Helen had been a catalyst for positive change. The family grew closer, their lives enriched by the peace and stability they had fought so hard to achieve. And in the quiet moments, when they reflected on their journey, they knew they had made the right choice.